Hello everyone. Welcome to my channel. On this channel, we'll be revising English language past papers. So our vision will be practically based on the English language composition writing, which is also known as essay writing, as well as English language grammar assessments, which are given to candidates who are writing examinations at various levels from senior secondary to junior secondary. So my major focus will be on papers that are prepared across the region of Southern Africa. And this is so because most papers in this region are prepared in a similar manner. Considering the curriculum in most of these schools or this part of Africa, the curriculum is quite similar in English language, where they have paper 1, paper 2, and others up to paper 3. But in all these papers, when you revise, you would see that the way the exams are prepared, it is quite similar, starting from the essay part or composition, as well as when it comes to grammar, structure, and everything, it is similar. So for our first lesson, we'll first focus on understanding what essay writing is, parts of an essay, and how we can write a good essay before we can proceed to choose a paper we'll be revising, either O-level, A-level, or GCE, or any other kind of examination that is there in the Southern African region. So, before I start, we have what we call an essay. In other countries, they call it composition writing. Others say essay writing. So when talking about essay writing, the basic understanding is that this is a part of English language where learners are expected to write about a topic that they are given during the exam. I'll repeat myself. Essay writing, it is where candidates that are sitting for the exam are expected to write on a particular topic. The topic they'll be writing about can be educational, entertaining, or political, depending on how the question has been phrased. Sometimes the writing might be creative, factual, or any kind, as long as the learner answers the question. Now, before we can go far, it is essential that we look at what we call parts of an essay. The first part of an essay is what we call the title. Others would say the title and the introduction are the same, yet I would prefer to look at the title alone and the introduction alone, as well as all these other parts. So the title. The title is basically what is written on top, which shows us the main theme or the main idea of the essay that you will be writing about. I'll repeat myself. The title shows the main theme or idea of what you'll be writing about in that essay. Away from the title of what we call the introduction. Now the introduction goes well with an introductory paragraph. Depending on the type of essay that you are writing, depending on the type of essay you are required to write, the introductory paragraph would differ. For example, if you are writing an application letter, your introductory paragraph will focus on stating why you have written that letter. If it is a narrative, you might start with a catchy phrase or a proverb or a saying that would capture the reader's attention before you proceed. And if it is a report, of course, you'd start to mention when, where, and you then continue to state what happened. So with that being said, we can proceed to the next part of an essay, which is the main body. Now, the main body of an essay, this is where everything to do with the title is explained. So if it is a descriptive composition, your main body will now describe the events that were happening. If it is a friendly letter, in the main body you explain yourself. Maybe you want to find out how your friend and their had their holiday, how they spent their holidays. You are going to go, where were you, what did you do, who was there, all those things. So the main body explores more of what you are talking about or explores the theme further. Then we have the last but not the least, the conclusion, or I would say recommendations. So now, the conclusion, you are just closing. You are closing the whole issue you are talking about. Now, if you have noticed, I've also said recommendation. For other essays, you don't conclude, you recommend, especially for a report, be it a police report or an investigative report or a research report. Others, those the ones they write in geography, you will be required to recommend as well. For other essays, you just end on conclusion. Now, I'll repeat myself. Parts of an essay. An essay has got 4 parts. The title, main theme of the essay. Introduction, which goes with an introductory paragraph, introduces what we'll be talking about, or gives us a flashback of where we're coming from and where we want to go, depending on the type of essay you're required to write. Then we have the main body, which explains more or gives more information about the theme. Then the conclusion, which is the closing, the recommendation, your own ideas or your own thoughts on what you are talking about. With that being said, we can proceed to look at the hints that can help you to write a good essay. There are a lot, but for this lesson I'll just look at a few that I consider to be basic, and if you know these ones and others as you proceed to learn on this channel, you'll see that the way you write your essays would change. So now, when we are trying to answer essay questions, my first hint or advice is that you're supposed to understand the question that you're given. Because when you understand the question, you would identify the type of essay you are required to write. If you don't understand the question, you will not know the type of essay you are supposed to write. So number one, understand the question. Once you understand the question, it becomes easy for you to write that essay. Number two, brainstorm or practice what we call mind mapping, which I will show you very soon in another lesson. So brainstorming or mind mapping, it is where after you've understood the question, you have known the type of essay you're supposed to write, you look at the points that you're given, if there are any, or you look at the question again and come up with ideas of the things you're going to talk about in your essay that you're going to write. I'll repeat myself. Brainstorming or mind mapping, it is where you come up with ideas of what you're going to talk about in the essay that you're going to write. Because you've understood the question, you know the essay you're going to write, you jot down those points somewhere with a pencil so that when you're done, you can erase what you write. Now, we go on to the third point on how to write a good essay. The third one is emphasizing on the need to write coherently. Now, when you are talking about any type of essay that you are writing, when you do the brainstorming, your ideas may not be put in order. They're just ideas. You write them in a jumbled manner. But you need to consider which one is going to be first, second, last, just like that. And when you're talking about writing coherently, you're supposed to consider the use of what we call linking words or conjunctions. Know which type of conjunction you're going to use to show the correct, nice, logical, and normal flow of your work. I'll repeat myself. Writing coherently focuses on you writing an essay that shows to say this is the first step, second step, third, just like that. Now, apart from writing coherently, we are supposed to now know that we should write in paragraphs. Write in paragraphs. Your paragraphs are supposed to be properly ordered and in logical and written in a logical manner, so to say. When you're writing a paragraph, this is one of the problems many candidates have. Some focus on writing one paragraph. Others would write 2 or 3. But when we're talking about essay writing, you're supposed to consider that each paragraph should have at least 2 or 3 points that have been combined and explained properly. I'll repeat myself. When you're writing paragraphs, you're supposed to make sure that you have 2 or 3 points that you have properly explained in that paragraph. Of course, others would say just use 1 point for one paragraph. But for most of these examinations, you are given word limit. So in order for you to write within the expected word limit for your essay, it is essential that you consider combining 2 or 3 points in one paragraph. But as you do that, make sure that you write your work logically. Let your work be properly ordered in these paragraphs. And when talking about paragraphs, it is essential that you practice indentation, where you indent your paragraphs. Indent. For many exams that I've seen so far across the Southern Africa, they require this. Others would say just write from the margin. Others are still saying indent your work. And I prefer this one. And I've seen the Examination Council of Zambia and a few examination councils in Southern Africa consider an indented paragraph. Now, apart from that, there's need for you to know that you're supposed to construct correct sentences. That's our 5th point on how you can write a good essay. Hints to writing a good essay. The 5th one is construction of correct sentences. When we're talking about the construction of correct sentences, our focus is on the subject-verb order, where in normal English language, if you're writing a sentence, it should have the subject and the verb. It is complete. Sometimes it will have the subject, the verb, and the object. Sometimes subject complement, object complement, just like that. But generally speaking, as a candidate, someone who's writing an exam, you're supposed to be aware of the correct way to construct your sentence by considering the subject, verb, and object order, or the subject and the verb order. Apart from that, under sentence construction, you're supposed to be aware of the subject-verb agreement, where the subjects you have used determines the type of verb you're going to use. For example, if you are alone, an individual, you're trying to present yourself towards other people, or to introduce yourself, better term, to introduce yourself, you would say, my name is John Smith. My name is Glovu Kanengwa. You are one person. So you are saying is. Is there the helping verb? Is agreeing with the subject, which is one. Now, if you are more than one person or more than one individual, it is you and your friend. You would say, our names are Samuel and John. It is more than one person now. I'll repeat myself while I was saying the subject-verb agreement, which states the number of subjects should agree with the helping verb that is going to be used as you continue writing or talking in English language. This also takes us to understand how we use words such as well as in conjunction with, in collaboration with. These also consider this rule. Number of subjects is going to determine the helping verb we're going to use. So some of these rules will learn them as we continue, especially when we're handling grammar, the grammar part of English language assessments that we have in most countries of Southern Africa. Now, apart from that, under sentence construction, as candidates are supposed to be aware of run-on sentences. Run-on sentences, this is where a candidate would write a paragraph without punctuating it. With that being said, I'll go to the 6th hint to writing a good essay. Now, I was just talking about run-on sentences. It's like this. You are given a question, you have understood it, you have started to write it. Then as a candidate, you have started to write that essay. As you continue, you are only putting a full stop at the end of the paragraph, whilst in between there's no comma, there's no exclamation, there's nothing to show what you're talking about. You are just writing without pausing. You are writing, maybe you start writing from here, then you write, then you finish here, full stop. You start writing again from here, you write, you finish here, full stop. That kind of writing the markers of your paper would consider you are using run-on sentences which have no punctuation whatsoever, but were just written like that without you considering any punctuation to make sure that your work is understood properly. Now, apart from punctuating your essay, you're supposed to be mindful of the parts of speech. Parts of speech. Now, if you are mindful and aware of the parts of speech, it becomes easy for you as a candidate to know which form you can use when using any part of speech. Apart from that, it makes you aware of how you can punctuate these parts of speech. Apart from that, you can know how to properly use any part of speech. Now let me explain myself. When I said you would know the correct form to use for a part of speech, which touches to tenses. For instance, you are trying to give an example of a classmate who stopped coming to school because she fell pregnant along the way. Now, you would say something like this. Mary could not continue learning because she get pregnant. You use the word get pregnant instead of using the correct verb form, which is got pregnant. That is what I meant to say. When you understand the parts of speech, it's easy for you to understand the correct tense or form of which you can use that part of speech. Is it the present tense, past tense, future tense? How can you do that? Apart from that, knowing the type of speech you are using makes it easy for you to punctuate it. For example, when I'm talking about proper nouns, when you're using a proper noun, every time you're using it in between a text or anywhere, you're supposed to start with a capital letter. For example, when you are saying, my friends and I went to the river to have a swim. River, common noun. No need to put a capital letter in front of the word river. But if you say, my friends and I went to the Zambezi River for a swim, the word Zambezi will start with the letter Z, yet a capital letter Z, and the river itself, capital letter R. So this is done to show that you understand the part of speech that you're using. For example, if you're using the name of a person, you cannot say John and write John with a small letter J. You say John and write John with a capital letter J, because that is a proper noun. Under parts of speech, you are supposed to know how you can use prepositions: on, at, under, in between, beside, which most learners confuse with besides. Beside, it's different. Besides, it's different. Now, with that being said, we can go to the last but not the least point to writing a good essay for your examinations, and that is the spellings. Being the English language that we're talking about, or being a subject that is centered on understanding English language, you're supposed to be aware of the spellings and how they are supposed to be written. Because if you don't know how to spell certain words, we usually, in fact, in Africa, most of us mix our local language, or say our dialects, with the English language to create a new word, or to say what we think we are saying and spell it in that manner, whilst we are not doing it the correct way. I'll repeat myself. There are times where we use the local language from home and use it to punctuate, to make the spelling of the word what is not correct. For example, you have the word choir, just like that. But if you're among the indigenous people of the Bemba in Zambia, you would think this is the correct spelling. Choir. especially someone from Eastern Province part of Zambia would think that's how they're supposed to spell it, choir, but it's choir. So the correct spellings are essential for your work to be marked properly. With these few hints, I do believe when that time comes, you'll write a very good essay. Thank you and see you next time.